My name is John Scheer. I'm one of the co-hosts with the Independent Roadmap. I'd like to introduce you to this episode of the Independent Roadmap, where we're going to talk about something that's near and dear to everybody's heart, and that's commissions. So I have James Roberts, who's my other co-host. He's going to talk about it. James is multi-talented. He is an RVP with the MIAA, but he is also owns his own agency. So James, talk a little bit about commissions on the independent side, if you would, please.
John, thank you for that introduction, and you're very generous with the multi-talented thing, so I appreciate that. John, on the independent side, you know, compensation is based on how much premium that you're writing with the actual carriers. The way it works is when you join us, we try to get you that direct appointment with the carriers. We've talked about that in the past. And then every carrier has a slightly different compensation plan. However, on personal lines, most carriers for new business will be range anywhere from 10 to 15%. We have a carrier that, depending on the product you write, can go up to 18% on personal lines. And then on renewals, what we're seeing is that same 10 to 15%. And so that structure is depending on what tier you are, what tier of product that you're writing and placing with that carrier. Those things determine the compensation. And the similar thing with commercial. So if you're writing commercial, this varies widely based on if you're writing a standard carrier like a Liberty Mutual, Travelers, Hartford, or one of those companies, versus an E and S company where you might get a lower compensation, but you're able to place that risk, something that would be a bit more risky. And so on the commercial side, John, we're seeing something very similar. The ranges generally are going to be 10 to 15%. However, some carriers, depending on the product, like cyber liability, I know some of our wholesalers are paying a little bit higher than that. And then I know oftentimes I get emails where some of our carriers are doing summer incentives or different incentives with work comp, and they're paying, 25% on those comp policies. And so, John, really the range for personal lines is 10 to 15, I would say. Also, the same thing on the commercial side, John, I would say the range is somewhere between 10 to 15% as well for new business and renewal. But John, what I've consistently seen in the industry is, like, if you start building your book, $1 million, $2 million, $3 million book, what we're seeing is the average renewal for that entire book tends to be around 12% in the independent space.
Wow, that's a lot more generous than what I've heard from other people that are currently in the captive space. But one of the questions I always get, James, is at the end of the year, they keep referring to the industry as contingencies or profit sharing. Would you want to allude a little bit on that?
John, first let me talk about the captive thing. And what I've heard on the captive side, John, is I know that there are producers out there making 1, 2, maybe 3% on renewals. And then there are some producers who do not make anything on renewals, but the agency makes some stuff. And then for the captives, agency owners, John, I know a lot of people are starting to hear about taking some haircuts. And that's a pretty significant reduction in compensation. And then I know some of our captive friends who are only making 7% on renewals, and so that's a significant reduction. So if you're making 7% at the captive, you come over to the independent side, John, you can do one of two things. One, you can build up half the book that you had and get paid the same amount, or you can have the same size book and get paid twice of what you're essentially making at the captive. Now, to answer your question with year-end contingency and bonuses, John, so there are two things that I want to mention. One really is quarterly bonuses, and this is something that we at MIAA and SIAA get to our members that I don't know of a lot of other companies that are doing this, or a lot of other organizations that provide these quarterly bonuses. And so, John, these quarterly bonuses are paid on top of the commission, right? And so these things are getting paid usually at 1 to maybe even 3% above and beyond the commission, and that's paid to us at MIAA and SIAA. And then, John, what's really unique is inside of our contract, we are contractually obligated to share and that quarterly bonus. And so that is something unique. The second thing, John, is the year-end contingencies. And this is really a significant improvement. Most of the standard carriers have a number threshold before you start getting year-end contingencies. So if you go out and get these carrier appointments on your own, whether it's Liberty Mutual, Travelers, Nationwide, whatever it is, they all have thresholds before you start getting year-end contingencies. Often those thresholds are $250,000 of premium written with that specific carrier. So if you're under $250,000, John, you're not getting a year-end contingency. If you go over that $250,000, you start to get, you're eligible for year-end contingencies. Oftentimes it's based on how much growth you have, it's based on loss ratios, and there are a number of different factors that can go into that. But you got to get over that 250 mark to even be in the conversation. Now with that, John, let me contrast that with us. You start earning those quarterly portfolio management service fees I talked about from $1. Those year-end contingency bonuses, John, we share that from the first dollar you write as well. So I always share a story. The very first policy I wrote inside my agency, John, was a bond. My sister owns an excavation company. She needed a bond for a city. We wrote that bond. The bond was $100, okay? My agency got a commission, and then on top of that, like the next quarter, so the bond was $100. The next quarter, I got a check deposit, or I got money deposited in my account for that quarterly PMSF fund. And so it starts from $1, and I have receipts to show that as well. And then the year-end contingency, John, one thing is like, it gets shared with us from the national level, from the MIAA level. And so there's multiple ways to make those year-end contingency bonuses. And that is above and beyond the commissions that are paid. And not to mention, John, we typically are getting top tier commissions with all of our carrier partners.
James, anything else we should know about agency compensation or year-end contingency bonuses?
John, there is an opportunity for a lot of agencies to make some additional revenue. If you're placing E&S business, there is an opportunity to get what's called broker fees. And so some agencies do charge this, some don't charge this. It varies by your agency. You as the agency owner get to make that decision. And then, we always just advise follow whatever the state rules are with those broker fees.
Could you give us an example, James, of when a broker fee may come into play?
Yeah, John. So really we see it primarily in the E&S business. And so if you go and place a piece of risky business with, let's call it RT specialty or CRC or RPS, any of our wholesale partners, you'll typically see on there a broker fee that gets paid to Burns, that gets paid to RT specialty. You can also add one for your agency. Let's call it $100, $200, $300. And some agencies charge that because some of these risk or their insurers might have more needs for certificates of insurance or things like that. And so it is additional revenue stream that goes straight to the agency.
It's interesting. Well, that pretty much, I believe, sums up all the commission questions that we've been getting here lately. James, if they want to reach out to you, where's the best place to get a hold of you at?
John, the best way to reach me is my cell phone, 816-401-7417. You can also find me on LinkedIn at James Roberts-KC, and I have a booking appointment link on there. You can feel free to reach out and book an appointment directly. What about you, John?
Feel free to give me a call. My direct number is 402-852-8486, and I'm out on the LinkedIn under John Scheer, and that's SCHEER. And on behalf of James and I want to thank you for attending this week's Independent Roadmap. Thank you.